We are here back with another video. In this particular video, we'll be talking about the numeric class. Now you might say, numeric class? Okay, that means it's something about numbers. So it's numbers, which is something like this. These two are numbers, right? So this is the numeric class. But you might say, why are we talking about this? What's so special about it? Because in the previous video, we have only covered things which are special about Python. It has. But before that, let me cover some basic concepts. Now, Python is an object-oriented programming language, which you all know. Now, what is an object-oriented programming language? It has two things. One is classes and one is object. Now, I think you all know the concept about classes and objects, but in case you don't, classes is like the blueprint of an object. So let me just write it. While an object is an instance of a class. Now you might say, okay, that sounds very technical. As you promised before, can you explain in the real world example? Yeah, sure. So classes can be understood as the blueprint. Now, what do you remember by blueprint? Blueprint. We have heard about in the construction sites, right? The blueprint where we create a diagram or where we create a structure of what the building would look like, what are the different rooms, how it would be structured and all. So that's a class. Now, what would be the object based on that scenario? The building itself. So the classes will show you the blueprint like, okay, this is the house, this is how it should look. Suppose I just show you something like this. I'm bad at drawing. So, yep, sorry for that. So this is an house, okay? Now let's suppose I give it this two windows, one chimney. Now this layered thing if I give. So this is the particular structure of the house. Let's not give layer for now. So this is my structure of the house. Okay. Now this is a very basic structure. It does not tell me what will be the color of the windows, what will be the color of the door, what will be the color of the walls, how the roof will be, whether it be layered or some other new design. So that's the blueprint. Now, based on this, if I give blue color and I give red color to its walls, it becomes an object. Now how? Now object is something which is completely describing this house. I am giving this blue walls, let's suppose grey door, and many more things out there. Similarly, in the usual case, a class is something which acts like a blueprint, and based on this blueprint, you define the particular attributes, the methods to it, and then it becomes an object. Now, let's see what it has to do with numeric class, because if I'm talking about it, it has to do something with the numeric class, right? Now, in Python, each and everything is stored in the form of an object. Cool. So if everything is stored in the form of an object, it should have its class. Now what is the class? Class is the data type. So let me just write it for you. Data type. Now what should the object be? Variable. Simple. Now what is a variable? I'm sure you know. A is equals to 79. A is the main named memory location. That's the variable. The type of the data which is being stored, data type. Now numeric class. So numeric class comes here. Now there are three things which are there in numeric class. Three different types you can say. One is the integer. Let me just remove this. So there's the integer class, which is denoted by the term int. Next, there's the float class, which is denoted by float with small f. And the final one, which is comparatively new and it cannot be found in Java, C++, and you have to explicitly create it or include it in a library. So that's the complex numbers. Which is denoted by the class complex. So these are the three types. Now let's look at one by one. First of all, integer. Suppose I write in a is equals to 79. Now what are the properties of this a is equals to 79? First, it's a whole number. Second, it's positive. Third, it does not have a floating point representation of it, so this comes in an integer. Now, integer has three things. One, it's an whole point. Second, it can be positive or negative. So even if I write b is equals to 79 with a minus sign, so minus 79, it would work in int. And this is how the integer class is. Next, float. So float has the value which has a decimal point representation. So if I write 79.9, this becomes a float because it has a floating point representation because of this. Similarly, in case when you write, you have used the mod operation, right? So when we are asked to do a mod for large numbers, right? So what we can do is we write 10e to the power 9. You must have used it in computer programming. Similarly, if you write it out here, it comes in the float because it converts it into 100.0. We will see the practical implementation of it, so don't worry, because as you had mentioned, we'll show you everything practically with real life examples. And this becomes our float. Now, complex numbers. So for the complex numbers, let me show you. Now, complex numbers has the form which is, let's give it b plus c j. Now, b over here is the real part, while c is the imaginary part. Anything which is related with j becomes the imaginary, while anything which is with b becomes the real. So if I write down a is equals to 7 plus 6j, or c is equals to 32 plus 75j, or d is equals to minus 32 minus 69j, or e is equals to minus 42 plus 73j. This all would come under the complex numbers with the class complex. So this was all about the numeric class, where you have three types: integer, complex and float. Where integer can have whole numbers, positive or negative; float, anything with a floating point representation; while complex with a real and imaginary part added to it. So this is how you learn about the numeric class. Start sharing today for shipping tomorrow.